Resident Evil 7 is upon us. Capcom has released 2 demos for the newest iteration in line with Resident Evil games. This game is a much different beast than the ones we already know. It feels like it's traveling back to its horror roots, but at the same time it feels completely different. It kind of feels like horror evolved. It's nothing like the past games as it's much more closer to a tone of Outlast or Amnesia, but it definitely has elements from the earlier games. The big difference here is that it's a first-person camera perspective instead of the Resident Evil more traditional third-person or the over-the-shoulder look. This is as close to horror as Resident Evil has ever felt, even more so than the early games. It also feels like a return in a sense to the earlier games, with the whole exploring in the dark and scary environments, and you also have hidden passages, searching for keys, and solving puzzles. Those have always been staple of the earlier games, but it also has definitely evolved since then. It's an evolutional return to the original games. It even has that sort of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis feel to it, because most of the time that you're in this game, you're going to be running from one of the Baker family members, and you kind of have to avoid them in the same way you had to avoid Nemesis. You don't know when they're going to pop up, and sometimes it's totally a surprise, and you have to run for your life. You'll have to save a lot of ammo and stockpile up on health packs, because you never know when you're going to have an enemy encounter and you're going to need all that. You'll have to be ready and supplied with enough stuff so when you actually do meet someone, you can get out of it alive. You have a very limited amount of inventory space that the series has been known for. You often have to decide what's more important, ammo or health. It weighs heavily on your mind and you really have to plan out how to survive this nightmare. I do, however, believe that a lot of gamers are going to see this as a hindrance and a lot of frustration, but it does provide a sense of helplessness and scarcity, and I think that's what the game needs. Chases and games of cat and mouse are a huge part of this game, and it's going to be scary as hell going into it. There is just this unsettling tone of getting chased by a psychotic family member that feels ripped straight out of something like Chainsaw Massacre. You always have this sense of urgency in the forefront of your mind, and the game keeps you on your feet constantly. You have absolutely no sense of being safe, and you just have this constant feeling of dread. The only time the horror ever lets up is when the game weaves in and out of its story, which seems to take place through different VHS tapes you find around the environments. These tapes give off a small portion of the story with flashbacks. It's definitely an interesting and unique way to tell a story, and it helps make the world feel a lot more alive and real. Oftentimes, the flashbacks in the VHS tapes would give clues to the puzzles, and other times it's kind of a warning to tell you what things are coming up. It adds a layer of tension and fears in your mind. There is no greater fear than watching one of these VHS tapes and seeing something horrible and terrifying happening, and then you come to find the same horrible room presented to you. Besides the VHS tapes, you'll find all sorts of diary entries and letters around the environment to give you clues and hints on things to come as well. All these little things help aid you in what direction you should take in the game, and it helps mold the scary journey that you are on. Like I said before, it feels like an evolved return to what Resident Evil was all about. Think of the original games without the cheesy dialogue and even more scary moments. The pacing of the game feels just right. The level design and atmosphere is what immerses you into this world and draws you in. And I can only imagine how horrific this game is going to be in VR. Just be sure you don't have any heart problems before you play it. For the fans that have been waiting patiently for the games to return to a state of horror, I have no doubt in my mind that they will be pleased. This is the first Resident Evil game in years that leaves me feeling really excited to play it. I can't wait to dive into this. It feels like Capcom is finally doing what they should have done a very long time ago. I can't help but think that all the recent horror games and all the fanfare for them has made Capcom feel like it's time to go back to the roots with the games. And ultimately, no matter how they came up with the conclusion of going back to that, I am very happy. And I really think that we all are getting a very awesome game with a scary experience in mind. The game looks absolutely downright awesome, and truly a horrifying reimagining. In my opinion, this game is going to knock it out of the park come January 24th. So that's going to be it, guys. This was another Jensen Media video. If you like these videos, please subscribe, like, and comment. That's what lets me know that I'm doing the right things, guys. So thanks for watching, guys. You have a good day and a good night.